today is with Chang, and she is the Blanket Fort Creations artist. She creates glow sculptures and glow pictures, basically, of resin. And she's an expert at resin. And recently, actually, has been making lava sauce, and it can actually glow. It's glow in the dark lava sauce. But warning, it's probably very spicy from what I hear, and but it is from locally sourced peppers, so that should be really cool. You can check out some of her sculptures here. She runs a lot of booths at local events, so you may have seen her around. Look for the like tent that glows in the dark, especially if you're at a night event. Makes really cool gifts um, for family members and friends, and useful things that can be used like dishes and things. So this is a great conversation, guys. It's a unique medium resin is. Um, there's a lot to it, specifically because resin requires a lot of safety gear. Um, it's, you know, it can be very touchy. So Chong gives a lot of great advice in this interview, and I hope you enjoy. And if you're interested in resin, you can follow her afterwards and check out her stuff and maybe talk to her. I'm sure she'd be willing to give advice about resin crafting. All right, so enjoy, guys. Hello, I'm Brittney Hazelton, and this is ArkLaTex Artistry, where we explore the arts in our area. Today, we have an artist that vends many events in our area and creates unique glow resin sculpture and our visual art pieces. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey Brittney, my name is Chang. I'm with Blanket Fort Creations, and like you said, I've been mostly known for my glow in the dark resin sculptures. Some are free-handed, some are framed, and the general idea is to bring art out to the people that can be touched and handled and enjoyed in a real life scenario.
Thank you. So yeah, I love your stuff. It's always catches the eye when, you're walking through an event and you just see this like glowing fortress, So my question starting like you go by Blanket Fort Creation. So how did you come up with the name and why?
So, especially during the pandemic, my daughter and I started a tradition where after we do spring cleaning, we take all the bed sheets in the house, we make a gigantic blanket fort,
Oh.
and it stays up and it's basically an open sandbox for whatever adventures we come up with. So the idea was anything is possible in this blanket fort.
Oh. That's cool. So
You
it's
want
like
an RFID tape that actually does something, we'll think up of something.
it
And
opens
usually it's something silly.
a place for your imagination, right? To open up
Mhm.
adventure and stuff. I like that. So, how would you personally describe your art?
Mm, if I could put it into words, I wouldn't have made it glow. But generally, I wanted something that when I experience art, I was always told art is meant to make you feel something. It not necessarily happiness or sadness, but even curiosity, whimsy. Um, I have the uncontrollable urge to go up and poke something, and if art can make you want to do that, I feel like it's done its job. So in my particular case, I wanted to instill so much curiosity in a person that they can't help but walk themselves across that courtyard and ask, what is this thing?
Oh, I feel like your art definitely does that. It's very touchable. It's very, it visually is very appealing and I we have a couple of your pieces and we like to get them to glow in the dark and play with them a little bit and So yeah, they're very interactive pieces, and some of them are some of the work I've seen of yours. I love the jokes inside of them. They're just funny, and I think that definitely provokes some kind of feeling and emotion. Um, so is it hard, in your opinion, to work with resin?
Um, I know that a lot of people work with resin these days, so I think that also gives a lot of people insight on how persnickety resin can be. Everything down to our humidity here, our oddly warm summers, and honestly, I think the pollen count may be contributing. There are some times where I don't know what happened. I'm going to blame the pollen. My first 6 months of things were of questionable setting, and a lot of them didn't make it to the booth. These days,
Mm,
I've gotten it down to a pretty well practiced habit. I can do it almost with my eyes closed.
nice.
And lately, I've been experimenting with things that are a little off recipe. My latest one, I'll have to bring you some to see, is a formula of my own. It's a stable soft set resin.
Oh,
So you know how when you look at something and you're like, does that squish? Can I poke it?
yeah.
So the answer is yes, it
Oh,
does squish and you can poke it.
what? Okay,
So
that's
I have a
really
sample
exciting.
of that. I have a sample of that. It's a small frame piece at the Highland Center. Miss Leigh McCall and I just opened up that gallery late October, and it'll be up to the end of the year. But I'm going to start introducing things where you don't know if it's squishy until you poke it. So you have to go find out.
That's awesome. So resin that is squishy. That's kind of crazy. I know most of the resin that I have ever worked with is always hard, but like I've heard that there's different types of resin that you can be used. I've recently got into resin printing. Like
Oh yeah,
I have a resin printing machine, so I've been making like hold on actually. I've been making these little characters and painting them
I
and
love the detail on those.
yeah, these we've been working on those, and I was thinking about experimenting in different types of that kind of resin, but the type of resin you do is more usually pour in it with molds and stuff of that
Mhm.
nature, right?
So I use a 1-to-1 poured epoxy resin, and main differences are it is heat bonded to itself, so it is one solid form.
Mm.
Hence all of my whacking on tables and dropping stuff. That's not just because I'm clumsy, but it does not. It from a 3D resin printer, you can get enormous amounts of detail. And I'm
Right.
trying to transition that because I can't get that detail in the molds I buy. I've switched to making them. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
have a friend with a 3D printer print the model that we're designing, and then
Ah.
I'll take it, dunk it in silicone putty so that I can do the poured epoxy resin, so that I can make it a heat bonded one single piece.
Oh,
And
that's
that does help with the stability. It certainly helps with the glow. Resin 3D printing is still done by layers, so it's self occluding. Each layer blocks light from getting to the next layer, and it blocks
mm-hmm.
light from coming back out. So that poured epoxy resin is the perfect medium for all that glow to shine through.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool though. So making molds with I didn't consider that. That's a cool concept. I can imagine you could do a lot with that. Do you ever work in and just out of curiosity, do you ever work in like any kind of like modeling program or anything of that nature? Like
Um, I dabble with pre-made plans from Thingiverse, but I have a friend or two really that they have their own strengths. One specifically does D&D characters, so
oh
he
yeah.
loves kind of that fine-tuning, personalized texture. I
Yeah.
have another who's just great at shaping things in raw 3D space. So if I come up with something that's just there is no pre-made format, there is no downloadable bit for it, and we're
That's
just going
cool.
at it as a round sphere and shaping it. So I've got a different guy for each side. I've
Nice.
also started making molds out of everyday real objects. So I have a trilobite
Oh,
fossil that we actually my husband found on the beach in Lion Regis,
what?
and I made a silicone mold of that. So I do glow in the dark resin cast of that fossil.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. working with silicone is also something that's a little tricky. Can you that so it's a lot of mediums you technically work with in order to create your resin in general.
And I mean, I've been trying to bridge a lot of different mediums I've played with in the past. I used to do a lot of wire wrapping, and these days I've considered using it as a kind of a frame to give my resin more body.
Mm.
Um, Taking kind of a stained glass approach to it, where I go through and I create the lattice work with the wire, go through with resin tape to create the backing, and kind of paint by number into the sections I've created.
Huh, that's
A lot of
cool.
ideas, not enough hours in the day.
Well, it's really awesome. I'm glad I'm like I enjoy hearing about your process. I've seen a little bit of your work, like some of the stuff you were working on when we had like a paint day, quite a few months ago, but that was really fun seeing like all your setup and things there at your house. Uh, so,
I've been doing some more free structured things, and I
oh,
wish I could invite people in to do that, but the amount of protective gear I have to wear
oh yeah,
is,
that's actually something I was going to ask you about, the importance of safety gear when working with mediums like resin.
yeah, I've had a lot of parents come up to me and they bought their kids a little resin kit from Michael's, and first thing I have to tell them is usually if they're that young, you may not want to expose them to those chemicals with or
Yeah,
without protection.
yeah,
But I can smell it for I usually let my pieces set for 48 hours before taking them out of the mold, and it's a month before they make it to a show or an event where I'm selling things. And
yeah,
during that time, they're just off gassing.
yeah. You
But I
definitely gotta let
have
them
the
cure
goggles, the
completely, right?
rebreather, mhm.
Yeah, because
And even after I can't smell it, my dog can smell it. All the guidelines say minimum 30 days, so
wow.
I'll go with the safer 30 days.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's good to know. I know that in my resin, we have to ventilate the office room we have it, the printer in, because oh, that smell will hit you hard, and you
Oh
gotta
yeah.
be. There's a lot of definitely if you do like want to ever teach people, I think a good studio setting and probably have an age limit, like it has to be adults more than
Hmm.
likely, I would imagine. Um, because of how just intense that is. And you know, if anyone ever gets a chance to work with it, they'll know. That
Oh, I
smells.
know. So if anyone wants to start working with it, minimum requirement, I would go get yourself um, at least, proper disposable gloves, if not like long up to your elbow gloves.
Mm.
Um, have, I would say minimum 97% isopropyl alcohol on hand, higher if you can get a hold of it.
Oh yeah.
And anything that touches skin needs that immediately. But you need eye protection, you need a rebreather, not just a mask. So it's an intense amount of gear to
Yeah.
start off with, but if you're in it for the long run, it's worth protecting yourself.
Yes, but you know, you never want to sacrifice your health for any kind of art. I mean, art is wonderful, but it's best not to sacrifice your well-being for it. So always take the safety precautions, I would say. So what do you hope that people get overall when they have a piece of yours, like in terms of feelings?
Mm, Most of the time, I'm hoping to evoke kind of, that feeling when you start a new fantasy novel or a new book series where you think, if this can happen, what else can we do? What other possibilities are there? What other magic is there in the world?
That
And sometimes
inquisitiveness.
all it takes is a glowing something or the other on your nightstand. Sometimes it's as simple as taking something as simple as the idea of gillyweed. My daughter's reading Harry Potter,
Mm.
and we got to the fourth book, and I don't like their interpretation of gillyweed. It's a bundle of squirming things, so I decided to remake it to how I wanted. And
Oh.
I created more of a glowing, ethereal, obviously glowing plant-like thing. And I that's just canon in my head now. This is what gillyweed should look like, and
Oh,
I'm reestablishing it.
that's
But
awesome.
it's the idea that you've taken something from your imagination and brought it into the real world.
So basically making life more fantastical. I feel
Hmm.
like, because life can be dull. I feel like for me as a fantasy artist, I'm like, yeah, sure, I could probably learn to paint realism, but I like life to be fantastical. And why would I paint the normal everyday when I want things to be like, you bring that kind of spark of creativity in my life and everyday objects like that? That's awesome. But,
And I mean, everyone wanted something magical growing up. So
exactly.
at 5:12 p.m. when the sun sets, that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm unleashing magic.
Uh,
And I also know when sunset is at any given time. Yeah.
I kind of get lost whether what time of the day it is normally, so I wouldn't know if it's sunset or not sometimes.
I've started setting, I have an app on my phone now that tells me because every time I plan an outdoor event, I'm counting down the minutes for that sun to go past the horizon.
Yeah, because that's when your stuff really pops, right? It really stands out in among you have the kind of curtains that kind of give it a darker feeling when you
Hmm.
can, especially it must be hard, especially inside if you have a building, like you're inside of a building with lights on. So you got to find
Oh,
ways
I'm
to
that crazy person that's setting up a tent inside.
that's awesome. Well, it works though. Your stuff still you
It does.
close in the dark tents, but yeah, it definitely stands out. So, um what kind do you have any upcoming events that you are going to be at that you would like to talk about right now?
Sure. So let's see, my next few, I will be at Rockets Over the Red. That'll be let's see, November 30th, the Saturday from 4 to 8 p.m. And that's along the Shreveport side of the riverside. So nice, dark fireworks, everything I love.
No.
After that, I have East Bank's Holiday Market, and I love working with Bossier Arts Council.
Oh yeah.
They are near and dear to my heart. I did some of my first events with them, and some of my very first paintings hung up in there. And honestly, I love everything they do for the art community.
Right. I feel you on that. They were a big part of like me becoming a professional artist and hosting events for our art group, Elaborate Arts, and hosting our artist meetings we used to have, and they really want to work with artists in the community. So I completely agree with you. They're a great organization for those artists who are just kind of getting started in that.
And I love their markets because it's one of the few places you get to see that person who's just starting out and wants to know how you feel about their art.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just all the craft vendors all at once. They make sure that, those coming up and coming artists are actually featured.
And I also
And I would say they have, this isn't a criticism of other markets, but they have the lowest rate of multi-level marketing I
yeah,
could find in a market.
yeah, I can imagine. And not only that, I feel like because of the East Bank, it's so much traffic, on the weekends and like, they get so much traffic that I think there's people that normally may not do art or be interested in art may wander in and happen to get interested in the stuff that's there. So it's got naturally good traffic in that area too. So,
And I meet the coolest people at these events.
oh yeah.
I've met people who do woodworking by hand. I meet people who do leather working that even if I'd run into them in any other circumstance, I don't think I would have talked to them about
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've met a lot of people. A lot of the artists that I talked to have met through either Bossier Arts Council or vending one of their events. So it's a great place to network too, as
it.
well.
Hmm.
So how can followers, follow your work and on social media and stuff?
So I am still getting the hang of social media. Blanket Fort Creations is on Facebook and on Instagram. Um, I try my best to remember to post on both.
I think you do pretty good at it. I think you do. All right, I'll make sure that people get, links to your social media in the article that I write for it. And is there anything else that you would like to say to our viewers before you go?
Um, I usually let my art speak for itself. So thank you for getting me to talk about myself. It's something I need more practice on. But come check me out and see what glows.
Well, thank you so much. Well, we'll talk again sometime, I'm sure. We'll find reasons to. All right. Thank you again. You take care,
Thanks.
okay?
All right.
All right, guys. So that was my conversation with Chang of Blanket Fort Creations, and her work speaks for itself. It's very unique stuff. Before we start going, I actually have video of that soft set resin that she was talking about. That's squishy, which is very different from normal resin. Any artists out there that have seen resin, resin's normally a hard, maybe a little flexible if you got a certain type. Um, but let me show you this squishy resin that she has her own unique formula for. So yeah, check this out. This is pretty nuts. Let me see. All right, now check this out. Look how it bends. That's very unique. It's almost like a gummy bear. That's very unique. I I saw that and I couldn't believe it. It's so crazy to see. Um, and I definitely want to get my hands on one of her squishy resin pieces. She told me that, like she said, she's gonna integrate the squishy resin among her work, so you won't know till you actually touch it whether it's gonna be squishy or not, because they look like solid pieces. I mean, all resin, her glow resin, kind of looks like gummies until you actually touch them and you're like, oh yeah, it's cool, hard, but cool piece. But these are actually gonna be unique. So if you're around and you go to an event and you see a glow in the dark stand with a bunch of stuff in there, go in there and start poking things. I'm sure you'll find something that's squishy, and maybe you'll get to experience it before me. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for stopping in, and your support means the world to me. It's important for us to show off our artists here in the ArkLaTex, and if you have any artist or art event or art organization that you would like to show off and you would like to recommend to me, go ahead and email me at Brittney Hazelton, Brittney period Hazelton at KSLA.com. Send me some pictures or just send me some links so I can go and look at the stuff, and maybe we can set up an interview with that person that you're recommending, or if it's you, with yourself, just let me know. I'll send you a sign up list of people that are looking to eventually be featured here on ArkLaTex Artistry. You can find more of our interviews on KSLA.com under Community and ArkLaTex Artistry, or under the podcasts, you can find just my videos under that section of ArkLaTex Artistry. I write articles for every single ArkLaTex Artistry I do, where you can find the links, the social media, and some pictures of the artists or information about any art events that we may talk about here. Um, I'm looking to start doing my interviews here in our studio now, so we'll have higher quality video from most of the time, unless I'm not on site when I'm doing the interview. But look forward to the interviews being done in a space like this. I can't always promise the camera quality for the artist. Not everybody could afford nice fancy cameras like this, but um, I also plan to eventually start having artist talks here with our couch here. Um, I was Let me show you real quick. So this is the couch. I plan on having artists come in and sit down with me to have some discussions. So that should be cool. If you're an artist and you want to talk to me about art culture and about you know, what you do or processes and or ideas that you might have for our community. Let me know. We can have an artist talk about it and maybe have a couple of artists come and have a conversation. Thank you guys again. Find more of these streams, more of these weekly interviews, and some of my mini documentaries on Roku, Apple TV apps, and all of our streaming apps for KSLA. Thank you so much again. Remember, support the artist in any way you can, even if it's as little as commenting or sharing their posts and just telling them, hey, I love your stuff. Keep it up. Anything as little as that, if you can't buy, is still support, and everybody appreciates it. All right, take care, guys, and I'll see you Wednesday for the recap on this if you want to watch that too. If not, I'll see you next Saturday at noon.